Today we are powering forward with BayWa RE's VP of Operations, David Dunlap, and VP of Sales, Keith Ostwald. Hey guys, how you doing?
Good, thank you. Appreciate being here today.
Yeah,
Good to see you, Chris.
it's always
Good
fun
to be
to
here.
ask two people how are you doing and seeing what happens. We all just attended the NABCEP conference out in Phoenix at the end of March, but it's an especially busy show on your end. BayWa, of course, is the platinum sponsor of the show, sixth year in a row that you've done that. And both of you were involved in presentations. There's the one on company culture, and there was another one on how to grow your business in 2022, which is, wow, shaping up to be a weird, another wild ride here on the solar coaster. So I guess before we get too deep into that, just in terms of NABCEP, what did you think overall? Any highlights?
I was really impressed with the turnout, the quality of conversations that I heard everyone was engaging in, the representation, not only for BayWa, but for the industry, I think, was at an all-time high. It felt good. I think everybody was really positive. It was good to come out of our caves, get together, kind of connect at a deeper level. And, you know, the show is unique in that we spend so much time together, not just on the details of product or technical training or whatever, but the social time, the meals, the in-between, that it just buzzed. It felt great.
I have to agree with everything David said. It was phenomenal. Sue McKean, Sean, the head of NABCEP, they did a phenomenal, and their whole team. I don't want to take anything away from anybody. It was a team effort to pull that off. And I, having been to many of them over the last 6 years, and I think probably been the prime mover for us being the platinum sponsor. Super excited at the results of this year.
I had a great time out there, learned quite a bit. Okay, so let's talk a little bit now about your presentation on sales versus operations and company culture. I heard that was a pretty well attended session. And at this rather technical event, I was kind of wondering why you chose to focus on the dynamic of sales versus operations and company culture overall.
Pretty early on in the talk, Keith revealed that this wasn't really going to be about a battle of sales and ops. We just kind of threw that in there. And I think, you know, it was an effective way to communicate. Look, everybody has challenges. Everybody has sales and ops is like the classic, you know, battle of the Titans. Everybody experiences tension there. And I think it was a good way for us to anchor conversation about BayWa company culture and how we deal with difficult situations, how we work together through challenging times. That was kind of the backbone of it and the idea for it.
What was resonating with the audience from that session? You know, what kind of questions did you get? You know, what was feedback? Yeah.
Authenticity in the most direct and meaningful way. I think David and I got up there to talk about our experiences with this company, with BayWa, and everything we've been able to do, to share with the audience that culture is not a one and done, that it's not, hey, let's have a happy hour on Friday or what have you, and to really explore with the audience what we've done over the last 8 to 10 years. But at the same time, let them understand that it's never too late to start, and it's how critical it can be.
Folks were really engaged, and the one comment I loved partway through was somebody kind of checking in with us, said, "Now wait a second, you guys are just a distributor, right? All you do is supply. Why are you talking about culture?" And it was the perfect question, right? It's like, you know, this is why we wanted to do it. We wanted to share that business doesn't have to be humdrum. It doesn't have to fit into conventional boxes, and that we can expect more from our business partnerships.
All right. Well, sounds like I missed that one. Like you said, there's 10 happening at one time, and I did have a lot of FOMO just constantly. I'm like, oh my God, I want to hear every single one of these presentations. So growing a solar business in 2022. Great. So David, let's set the table with a quick industry overview first. I do think a lot of listeners understand the issues and complexities happening right now and are maybe all tracking the same things. But so when you're talking with contractors, what are the important things that you keep bringing up, that they keep bringing up? You know, what should we just not be losing sight of amid everything right now?
The two biggest things for me are agility and resiliency. And I look for every opportunity to bring those up and talk about them and ask installers kind of the tough questions. Have you thought about your contingency plans? What if your primary plan doesn't go well? What if you can't get 100% of your plan, your supply, whatever? Where do you have built into your process some ability to pivot, to be resilient, to have some redundancy. I think if anything, the last few years of COVID and the supply chain challenges have taught us is that we don't have certainty. And so amidst that certainty, it feels like, well, what can I do? Well, what you can do is have some backup plans. I also ask people about their trusted partnerships, and are you actually leaning into those partnerships? This is a time when deep partnerships that are built on a foundation of trust and transparency and mutual benefit really, really shine. The last sort of primary one is I encourage installers, contractors to focus on selling their core values and their service rather than a particular product or brand. Brands are going to come and go. We're entering a commoditized kind of state of our industry, and most of us are not ready for that. We haven't experienced it before. But when I look at what our sister companies are doing in Europe, it's all about just sort of interchangeability. And again, it's a form of the resiliency I'm talking about, but the brands, they're still important, but they're not the cornerstone. And I think contractors need to differentiate on their core values and their service.
Keith, how about you? What keeps coming up in your conversations? Anything David didn't touch on?
Chris, I would actually challenge a little bit that a lot of folks are really well informed on this. Our session, the growth session at NABCEP, demonstrated to Preston Booker and myself that there was a lot of gaps, I think, in people's awareness of what's happening in the industry. Yes, they're seeing constraints, they're seeing scarcity, there's challenges, no doubt, but the depth of the challenges, not only that we're preparing for, but have been experiencing, I was seeing a real gap there. And whether that's the WRO, whether that's the pending AD/CVD legislation, that there was a lot of table setting for the first half of our presentation, and there was I think a certain paling of everybody's as they received the data. And then secondly, how do you prepare for it? I mean, that was again and again and again we were having those conversations, and we're having those every day. And I think really the level of discussion and honesty that we brought to it, as a distributor, but not marketing ourselves, to simply say you should be picking products where you have multiple sources.
There was a recent survey that SIA did in a webinar they just put on that I was listening to, that did indicate that while the industry is in a potentially bad spot with the AD/CVD trade case, residential and commercial installers maybe haven't quite felt the pinch yet because they were working through distribution. But at some point that's going to happen, and kind of all at once, the entire industry is going to be scrambling and looking for alternative module solutions. And so that's why I wanted to transition next to your other panel, Keith, with and I believe old pal Preston Booker was on another episode of Power Forward, was on that one too. Is your solar coaster grinding gears? How to grow in 2022. So it's closely related to how and why BayWa works with solar contractors. But can you run us through, I guess, real quick, the challenges about how products and planning are impacting solar businesses right now? I guess, given everything I just said leading into that. Yeah.
Yeah, no. There's just a level of, I mean, the conversations we had at the event, as well as like I said, that we're having each and every day, is there's a level of security and planning that we're very used to having with our customers, and that, given the trade situation, given even the manufacturers themselves, the data that's just out there is very, very difficult to plan on. For those that haven't been planning, it's a very rude awakening. And for those that are used to planning, it's just increasingly difficult week to week, month to month. We get tons of questions each and every day. What should I be selling? And a lot of our consultative selling style is to say, well, okay, how long is your lead time? Is it a month? Is it 6 months? What backlog? Those kinds of things. And we've spent a lot of time talking about run rate lately with our customers, so that we're not simply focusing on, I have 10,000 of these modules sold. I understand. How many do you normally put in a month? Oh, 1,000. Okay, well, that's really good to know. We can focus on keeping 1,000 a month for you for the next few months. But if it takes 10 months to put those in, simply the SKU changes, the inventory costs, everything that goes along with that, we both have to sort of find a middle ground to be flexible.
Can you talk a little bit more then about how BayWa any solar distributor should be working with solar contractors to build solutions in the environment we're in right now?
We're looking ahead at credit constraints and sort of across the business. So it moves away from just being a transactional basis. This product and this price. Are you going to give me a PO today? To more about what are all the aspects of what we can support you on your business, and do we have all of those aligned and supporting the same volumes, the same expectations of that business?
There's some really honest conversations happening too, where with key accounts, people that we've worked with for years, where we are encouraging them to seek, a resilient supply chain for them to understand that not only that we're still friends and still partners if you have to buy modules or something somewhere else. And so I think that is one way that, I mean, it is a significant way to build trust, to build the partnership, and know that when things settle down, we'll find a way to come back together and do more meaningful share together if we lose any in the short term.
So that word keeps coming up, the resilient. You mentioned the need for resilient solar contractors, and I think you'd agree that there are short-term challenges completely out of their control that need to be addressed and thought about. Let's now maybe move, if we can, to like medium and long-term challenges. What do you guys see as the primary challenges for solar contractors with that time frame in mind? And I guess also define what you see as short, medium, and long-term when you're doing your planning.
Yeah, I'll kick that one off. I think for me, those timeframes, it's helpful to bracket them. So short term, I tend to think of as just what's your next month's worth of transactional business. What, for most installers, that's they've got their backlog. It's typically longer than a month of sold, but what they're trying to do is all of that immediate short term, next 4 weeks. It's, do I have designs, permits, permissions, supply, everything lined up, and I'm just getting it on the board for weekly truck rolls, right? So I think that's the short term, and farther out than that is not, in my opinion, short term. Then bracketing that, the long term is kind of outside the bounds of whatever their sold backlog is. So if they're currently selling into a 6-month backlog, then I would say long term starts at 7 or 8 months. So it's, what am I thinking about comes next from a sales cycle? Do I need to change the way I'm selling? Do I need to change the product mix? Do I need to offer, more storage attachments in my portfolio? Whatever. You've got to be further out than that sales cycle in order to make changes that are going to, that you have time to train your sales team on and put into place, right? So that has to be something longer than your backlog. And then by default, having bracketed that way, the midterm is everything in between. So if I need a more immediate change to my sales that are at the back of the hopper, maybe there's still time to do non-disruptive change orders, right? You closed a contract, but you already can see you're going to have a problem with the module spec. So before waiting until it's in the short-term planning where it's really going to be a problem, what are the viable substitutions? You can solve that one with a different mindset and a different approach than you're solving the immediate supply chain challenge of, is that order shipping from BayWa tomorrow, like you said it was, right?
There are a lot of questions about not just product availability these days, but also just trust in solar products. Keith, if a solar contractor asked you, what should my salespeople be selling? What would you tell them? And, I imagine there are different ways you could break that down from different perspectives, but just what comes to mind on that?
I mean, certainly we have to explore lots of preferences and how the installer sells and how much they're tagging either their brand or their value prop to what they're selling. I think David had touched on it earlier about the commoditization of the solar industry. And I think that's whether an installer likes to hitch their wagon to a popular brand or not. I think we're just going to see more the fact that brand is going to slide a little bit. It really is a function right now where I would say that a vast majority of manufacturers in our space are in a challenging situation, and it is not directly their fault. We started this conversation with talking about whose fault was it, sales or ops, in our presentations at NABCEP, and I think that blame game, that pointing fingers, is probably not very healthy. And I think it would be better to focus on history and trends and things that have worked for the installer in the past, and where we may be able to substitute or build upon that.
But I did want to end by asking you, because NABCEP's also kind of a showcase for new products. Is there any particular brands or new things you guys wanted to shout out that we should be paying attention to this year? Availability stuff aside, but just interesting technology.
Trend wise, 2022 is definitely about, for me, from a product landscape standpoint, it's about kind of some shifting sands and some resetting of foundational capabilities. I don't think there's really a year for massive regime change or even new, major change in product technology. Like I said, I think we're at the front end of a commoditization of solar. So price gaps in PV kind of shrinking so that the range is a little narrower. I think the idea of a premium brand, premium price, premium everything probably is going away, and it's just a little bit more of a narrower band or a range where it's about things other than just an output or an efficiency. And so maybe there's a tie back here too for contractors thinking about where are their core values driving them to align with the solutions in products and technology. And thinking about, I want to offer these products because of what they offer the consumer, what the warranty and the long-term backing is versus an upfront cost or a name recognition or an efficiency.
I think in the inverter space, you've had a duopoly for a long time. Two great companies that own 90+% of the market share. I wouldn't be surprised in the next year, 6 to 12 months, that we don't see some new entrants that are pretty exciting in that space. In modules, I mean, LG's exit left a big hole in the residential space that a lot of manufacturers are clamoring to fill. And I think that and that was also a duopoly. I mean, if you think of LG and SunPower being the sort of the two premium brands, SunPower has become more like say Sunrun, and LG is of course leaving the market. So, what previously was mid-tier brands probably looks like the new premium, but I think that the whole market shifts a little bit and flattens out, as David mentioned, for across the broad spectrum of PV module manufacturers.
Things that stood out to me at the show kind of tie in also to the beginning of conversation about sales versus ops, were just interesting software solutions that are emerging to really tie the sales to the operation side together a little bit more. Customer experience solutions that stay in touch with the homeowner in a more automated, efficient way. Those types of things that maybe the customers aren't seeing, but could maybe help solar installers run their business a little bit more efficiently, so they can focus on more of the stuff, that the nitty gritty and the planning that is going to keep them, in it for the long haul.
I would agree with that, Chris. I think that we're in our tweens as a solar industry, right? We're not teenagers anymore, but we're still not really fully grown up. And I think the industry was pretty bootstrapped in the early days, right? And I'm still kind of amazed with any company, whether it be a manufacturer, a distributor, or a contractor, that are cobbling together, running their business on multiple spreadsheets and no integrated ERP system, as an example, right? Or now in this time where everything is available on an app and you can sync apps to other systems and programs. To your point, being able to manage a fleet of installed homes kind of simply and in aggregate is something that we should all be looking at. Absolutely. And it's an opportunity for us to kind of mature and move into a different space professionally than I think we had available to us a decade ago. So it's exciting.
And it was exciting to chat with both of you today. This was a great conversation. And, like we said, there's a lot of issues right now, but still, the future's bright for solar, and it's all just very interesting to keep up with. And I'm glad we have both of you and BayWa to keep us up to date on what's going on. So thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Our pleasure.